Hosting for the Dice Tower is generously provided by Cool Stuff Inc. Cool Stuff, in stock at coolstuffinc.com. Thanks for your support. The Dice Tower, episode 455.
Math.
Welcome to the Dice Tower, a podcast about board games and card games, and especially the people who play them. On today's show, we answer questions from the mailbag, including head-scratching Kickstarter stretch goals, the origins of Shut the Door, and if it's worth trying to make a bad local game store better. Plus, we add up our top 10 games that teach math. I'm Eric Summerer, and here's your host, the Kate Monday to my George Frankly, Tom Vassell.
I think you've used this one before.
I think I have, but it matched a whole lot better this time.
The reason I think you used this before is because I had no idea what you were talking about. So I looked it up and found MathNet, and then I remembered that you talked about that very excitedly a long time ago.
You know what I bet I should have done? I should have said Pat Tuesday to my George Frankly, and then it would have been totally different.
That does sound possibly correct. Or you could have just picked some other famous mathematicians.
I could have, but Square One Television is pretty darn awesome.
All right.
Oh, you know what I could have done? Never mind. Hang on one second. I'm Eric Summerer, and here's your host, the peg to my cat, Tom Vassell. Okay, we're all good.
Hey, folks. As he just said, I'm Tom Vassell.
I'm Eric Summerer. How's it going?
We're here to talk about board games and things relating to board games. Speaking of board games, our cruise is going to be closing soon for registration.
Okay.
We have less than 40 rooms left at the time of this recording. So if you're going to come, you need to think about that soon.
Now, why does it close down?
Well, we only have so long with the cruise before we have to give those rooms back.
Ah, okay. So essentially the room block, the ship block that we have reserved will eventually go back into the system if we haven't sold them all.
Or we'll sell them all. One of those two things will happen. But either way, the rooms won't be around very much longer. Also, conventions coming up that we might see you at. By the time we've posted this, the week of me posting this, I'll be at the F2Z headquarters.
Well, I read the press release on this. They're giving away there are contest winners that are going to get to go play games with you.
That is correct, folks, and you may wonder why I didn't offer that on this show. That's because I did it on Board Game Breakfast, which is another show we do. So keep in mind.
I've heard of this.
There are multiple shows.
Wait, this is it's like a podcast that you can watch with your eyes?
That's correct. This is what is called a video, which I do. I'll say I do 6 or more over the course of a year.
Yep.
Which it is now almost May.
That's an odd number to just throw out there.
It is.
It's almost like you're sending a message.
This is an episode about math. 6. This episode is sponsored by the number 6.
And also 0 is less than 6.
So anyway, I'm going to the F2Z headquarters, which is going to be fun. Hopefully, they have a lot of new upcoming games, which I'm excited to see because I did not see many of them at the gathering. I did see one though. Their sequel to the Western game, which is wow. My mind has gone. Flick 'em up.
Flick 'em up. Yes. So it's sequel, not expansion, but new game.
Well, okay, I guess that it's not so much that it's a sequel per se. It's that it's the next game in their line. So they have Flick 'em Up, which was about flicking discs and shooting other cowboys. Their next game is called Junk Art.
Junk Art. It's not actually related to Flick 'em Up. This is just the next Pretzel Games game.
Well, mostly yes, except there's a scenario in Junk Art that uses some of the pieces from Flick 'em Up.
Does it now?
Crossover, which I thought that was kind of cool. Now, this game comes with a bunch of weird pieces that look like they're from the craft store. And you would think that it's your typical stacking game. But instead, there's like 15 games in the box. And each round you draw a card, and that's the rules for that game.
Okay.
So, for example, you're trying not to knock pieces over, usually, and you're try to build the tallest structure. But like the basic game, you draw 2 cards. You have a handful of 4 cards. And on your turn, you play 2 cards. One's for you, and one's for the next person who plays after you. And each of those cards corresponds to a piece. The person who comes after you picks one of those cards, and you get the other one. And then you stack that piece on your structure. If you touch something that's the same color, you get a point. If you touch something that's the same shape, you get a point. So you're trying to put out 2 pieces so that they pick one and hopefully give you the piece you want. Or they're both just awful pieces, and you want them to mess up.
Interesting.
Another one has you turn over a card, and the piece that everyone sees, they quick stack on their building as quickly as they can. It's a speed game because the last person doesn't get to put it on their building. But you also don't want to knock your building over. So just a lot of fun. I really, really enjoyed this. It felt like every time we did it, it was something new. It's one of the most unique, fun dexterity games I've played in a while.
Okay.
So anyway, I'm looking forward to seeing that. I'm looking forward to seeing that Cthulhu Pandemic game. And hopefully, maybe I'll catch a glimpse of Seafall.
One can hope.
I talked to Rob Daviau about Seafall, and you could see our interview with him on the Dice Tower video channel. And we asked him about Seafall, and he seemed to indicate it was around 15 games.
Okay, that's about Risk Legacy length.
Yeah, and he didn't answer whether you could play it afterwards, but it doesn't sound like they're very long games. And he said that people really like the whole open up a box, open up a bag, find something new. And there's going to be more of that in this game than ever before. Come on, you know that has you interested.
It already had me interested. I'm now slightly more interested.
Speaking of Rob Daviau, did you see they just announced an expansion to Betrayal at House on the Hill?
I did see that. That's interesting. Although I heard a lot of people saying, well, now I have to buy the newer edition because I'm not sure it's going to be compatible with the original Avalon Hill version.
As far as I know, it would correspond to both of them. Not to mention, I believe the changes in that new edition were minimal at best.
Okay.
But it is intriguing. Each of the scenarios in this new book has been designed by someone different. They have like a big, long list of famous people and designers who put these together.
That's exciting.
Yeah, I'm really getting off topic here. This is
a little bit. We were talking about conventions.
Right. Okay, so that's the next convention. And then in early May, me, Sam, and Z will be going to the Cool Mini or Not convention in Atlanta. So hopefully several of you come by there and say hi to us. Rodney Smith will be there. And I think the Secret Cabal guys will be there. But it's going to be fun. Usually, 2 years ago when I went to Cool Mini or Not convention, it was like, ooh, what new game are they showing off that they're going to be making this year? This time it's like 30. They have a lot of new games coming out, if you remember.
Okay, so you'll be very busy.
I will be. We're going to try to stream live from there. We'll see. And so that's that. And then what's the next? June, UK Gaming Expo. Me and Sam will be there. And then Origins. All this stuff is coming up. We'll talk a little bit more about each one as it comes. But let's get to some games.
Let's.
I'm very intrigued with Eric's first game because this game has me so fascinated by the theme and yet so scared of this company and their production / never get the rules right. And also it's gotten really bad press from the other people in my game group who've played it, but I have not yet played it.
Okay. Well, with that intro, the game is called Primetime. You are running a television network, and the object is to not only build ships, or not ships, shows into your schedule that will earn you money, but also to build up these shows to win awards at the end of each season. The game plays over 6 rounds. At the end of 3 rounds and at the end of 6 rounds, you have scoring rounds. So you will be building up your schedule, building up, and then at the end of round 3 and at the end of round 6, you score. You do this through an action selection mechanism at the beginning. You will be acquiring stars, directors, and talent to go with your shows and shows themselves. And the shows can be single specials, they can be mini-series, they can be full series. just depends on how long they last. The single shows only last one round, the mini-series only lasts until the end of the season, and the full series can last you the entire game if you want. You can bid on these cards. You have 3 little worker pawns, and you can place down on your bids. You can also activate various action selection spaces, which can change the turn order, which is important. I'll get to that in a second. You can move some cubes around because ultimately you are competing for these demographic cubes. And I think they're supposed to actually match up color-wise to certain types of fans, but I couldn't actually find a chart that told me what they were. But there's all these different colored cubes, and they are distributed into pools for each day of the week, Monday through Friday. And these cubes, after they get allocated, will go back to these pools, and they can be allocated again. So if there's a whole bunch of, say, brown cubes on Monday, there will continue to be a lot of brown cubes on Monday that you can compete for. So you can sort of plan for that. There's also ways to simply earn some points. You can take unused talent cards in your hand and earn money for them while you're waiting for the proper project to show up. And you will activate all of these spaces with your guys. Then you will assign the cards to everyone's hands and figure out your schedule. You can place one show on each day of the week, and you can place any number of talent cards, although you can only have like one actor for each show, one director, one writer, etc. And you are trying to match up the genres. So if I have a sci-fi show, I really want to get a sci-fi actor involved with that show because that gives me bonuses. Once everyone has assigned their schedule, and you do this in turn order, so I may see, well, Monday's looking really nasty. There's a lot of competition on Monday. I might put a rerun in on Monday and put, my flagship show on a different day so I have a better chance at getting the cubes I want. Then comes the cube distribution, and you distribute these things.
So far, everything you're saying sounds good with this thematic thing, and then you keep have this dissonance with saying cubes.
Yeah. So really what you're doing after all of that action selection, it's ultimately a cube draw. Each day of the week is evaluated, and you look and see, I mentioned trying to match up sci-fi to sci-fi, horror to horror, reality to reality. There's also just plain stars that show up on these cards, star symbols. And for each star symbol or match you've acquired on a particular show, you now have a primary cube draw. And it's kind of like first dibs, but you still go in turn order. So you look at everybody's primary cube draws, those stars and the matches, and they get, in turn order, 1 cube, 1 cube, 1 cube, 1 cube, until all of those primary cubes have been allocated. So there may be, I get 3, I get 2, etc. And then, once again, in turn order, you are drafting more of those cubes. So you're looking and going, well, I need these cubes, I need those colors. I know you can't take these colors, so I just have to leave those for you, and maybe I'll get them later. And it becomes less about making shows and more about just drafting colors. Turn order is vastly important at this point in the game, and the way they do the turn order, you can pay a coin to put yourself in the turn order stack and jump to the front of the line, but if somebody jumps in after you onto that space, well, now they're going first. And if somebody jumps in on top of them, now they're going first. And if you get outbid for those cards, you then can allocate your worker somewhere else at the end of the whole round. So you could get a show really cheap, you could get a star really cheap, or you could jump on the stack if you have a coin for turn order. And being able to do that at the very end of the round is pretty devastating right before the cube draws. I'm just sort of running to the end here. Turn order is so vastly important, and it boils down to this cube drafting mechanism, which is so much more important than just about everything else. The humor is good. The theme is integrated well. It's got variety. It actually has some planning and strategy. There's stuff to do in this game. It is interesting.
I'm smelling a butt.
But it's all about that cube draw. And if you are third or fourth in the turn order, it is painful. And it's so important to get first choice on some of those cubes, especially in the early rounds when there aren't that many out yet. If you don't allocate a cube to a card, if it's a talent, they get fired. If it's a show, they get canceled. If you spent a good amount of money on a bid for a show that then gets no cubes, that stinks. So I think it's a good game. I don't think it's a great game. I think it's more frustrating than I would like it to be, and maybe that's mitigated with better play. But it wasn't as fun and light as the theme would make it out to be. And that's really my hesitation with it. Primetime is interesting, but it's not great.
And that is the kindest review of the game I've heard so far. And that is because Eric is always kind.
I laughed many times looking at the various shows that they offered. It's interesting.
Man, I love the idea of this theme. You think this is like a theme that's a slam dunk for a game, right? This is like a theme that, I don't know, I just find it fascinating, especially like with today. There's so much quality television out there, all competing for our eyeballs. Mm-hmm. And you can't watch all of it. There's also a lot of really bad television out there competing for our eyeballs.
Right.
Just the idea of it, going up against each other. Man, I really want to like this game.
Yeah.
But I am scared, Eric.
What I really want to do, Gil Hova has an upcoming game that I've kickstarted called The Networks that I'm very excited to try and compare to this. And something tells me that game is going to be a smoother one than this one.
I saw that one last week being played in prototype form, and it looked interesting, and the people who played it gave much more positive reviews.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let me talk about Rockwell. Now, Rockwell is a game, I don't know, it's, the game itself is about digging to the center of the earth, but you're doing it to get minerals. So,
sure, why not?
If you dig to the center, that's your problem. Mm-hmm. This is a game from a company, I believe it's Sit Down, with an exclamation point.
I am sitting down.
I understand that. I feel like this game is, what if I wanted to stand and play it?
No, sit down.
Well, either way, this game's not getting a ton of love, and it's kind of interesting because when you look at the board and you look at all the pieces and the setup, I went through like 3 pages of setup, and I was like, oh boy, here we go. And it really wasn't that complicated. It's about digging, like I said, digging down and finding minerals. And so you have these digging teams that go down, and then you want to have other people join up with you because you can't dig an area by yourself. And then when people join up with you, you'll split the resources that you find. It's a worker placement game, and then basically an upgrade game where you'll get better diggers and special abilities, like if you dig and you find, there's some kind of smash up or cave in, you might not lose as much resources as you might otherwise. It's a very tight money game. I like it. It's entertaining. It's a little too tight for me, I think. There's usually not enough spaces to sell all the goods you need and or buy the upgrades you need, so you might only get to do one of those on a turn. But I do like the ideas it has. It's cubes, again, moving them around. But I thought the theme goes well, especially since the first person to get to the middle of the earth will get some bonus points, even if that crew is lost. I guess it's the glory of the thing. Hey, we made it to the middle. We loved you. But anyhow, it's a solid Euro-style game. I don't think there's anything super special about it, although the board looks really cool. It's like a rounded board, and it offers some good choices. So I like it. Just, it's a decent game.
Okay.
That's Rockwell.
From the classic games file, I got to play Medici a weekend or two ago. Well, when people talk about pure auction games, this one often comes up. This is an auction game where you are competing over 5 different commodities. There are tiles, at least in this version. There's lots of different versions of this, but this version has tiles.
Ooh, do you have the new version?
This is not the new one. I actually haven't seen the new one that's supposed to fix. This one has had so many additions with graphical issues. One of them, like the scoreboard went the wrong direction. It went like counterclockwise. This one is okay. It's got some font issues, but
right. Almost every board for Medici looks terrible.
Yeah, I think this one is maybe the best of the previous generation, although I've not seen
the worst.
The new
one's from Grail Games, by the way.
Okay. Anyway, in Medici, there are 5 different commodities. There's numbers 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 5. And then there's also one that's just like a straight 10 points. But it's not any of the 5 commodities. And you, on your turn, will draw 1, 2, or 3 of these tiles and then auction them once around the table. And someone will win these tiles. And you have a boat that has only 5 spaces on it. So eventually you're going to fill up your boat. You want to be a little careful about filling up your boat early, because you may be out of the round and unable to bid on some sets of tiles later. Then once everyone has bid on everything, and you're bidding using your victory points, everybody starts at like 20 or something, and those are straight points that you are bidding to get these lots of tiles. Then once everyone has filled their boat, you get to move up on these commodity tracks for each tile that you've picked up in a particular commodity. So there's a sort of a majority thing going on there. If I have gotten the most spices, then I will get points at the end of the round. Also, these numbers that I talked about, they allow you to compete for a largest boat. And if you have the largest boat, you get a pretty good-sized bonus at the end of the round. And then you reset and do it another 2 times. And at the end of the game, most points wins, because you'll be earning points, again, the same things you're bidding with each round, and hopefully making a profit each round that you play. It is pretty much entirely about these auctions, and as you go from round to round, suddenly the values of the different commodities are different for each player. If I'm in the running for the green tiles, and you're not, well, they're worth a lot more to me than they are to you, and if I draw a green tile, do I pull another tile and make it a 2 tile? Maybe I draw something even better for me? Or do I just send around a single tile hoping I can grab it for cheap because other people don't necessarily want a green tile to fill their boat? That difference makes this an interesting game. It's a lot of staring and looking at the board, though. So if you don't like that sort of game, certainly stay away from it. But if you like auctions, and if you like that difference as a game evolves, and how that tile is worth a lot more to me than it is to you, or if I draw a tile that's not great for me, do I try and make it better with another tile draw, or do I cut my losses and send it around the table, losing my action turn? It's interesting. Tough decisions. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed revisiting Medici.
I scrolled down to the end of the script to see if you had put it in your top 10 math games. I thought
didn't.
This was like a thematic choice here.
Yeah, maybe.
The reason I'm not a big fan of Medici, I'm not going to argue that the game is a well-designed game. My biggest problem with it is just that if you make a mistake early on, it's difficult to recover from. And every auction, you're sitting there going, man, if I mess up in this auction, I'll lose. But I'm not quite sure how much everything's worth.
It's true, yeah.
And this actually brings to mind a game I just played called Tin Goose. This is a new game that's out from Rio Grande, where there was that same thing going on, like, okay, it's time to auction off these planes. And I was like, well, how much is a plane worth? I don't know. You guys decide.
You don't,
am I paying too much? Should I outbid that guy? I don't know how much stuff's worth.
It is possible to go off the rails in these pure auction games. And if somebody bids too much, it's going to mess things up for other people, and they're not going to win.
This is why, by far, my favorite style auctions are the Vegas Showdown, Amun-Re auctions.
Which Primetime has, the game I just talked about. It has that style of auction. That didn't necessarily save it, though.
Okay, I'm going to talk about a new game from Stronghold Games, and I apologize in advance for being positive. Just kidding. I do like a lot of Stronghold games. And this one is Animal on Board, or is it Animals on Board? It's one of those two. In this game, you are either Jed or Rufus or Susan or Sally or whoever you are. You're just not Noah.
Anybody but Noah.
But you're collecting animals for your ark.
Okay.
The problem is that Noah is put out some sort of law that basically just doesn't allow you to have pairs of animals. That's his thing.
Okay.
So the game is full of many different animals. I want to say there's 12 different types of animals, each with a numerical value of 1 through 5 on each animal and a bunch of tiles. So each round of the game works thusly. You put a certain number of tiles in the middle of the table. Let's say you're playing a 4-player game. You'll have 12 tiles face up, 1 face down. They're in one big group. Each person starts with 1 food. So let's say it's Eric's turn. What does he do on his turn? He either will split the group. So he'll split this 12 into 2 groups. He could split it into a group of 6 and 6 or a group of 11 and 1, whatever he wants to do. So let's say he splits into a group of 8 and 3. And then once he does that, he takes 1 food. The next person can split the group of 8, or they can split the group of 3. You could split any group you want. You just can't say, I'm going to take the lion out of this group and the rhino out of this group, and they become a new group. No. A group can only be split into smaller groups that are a subset of that group.
Okay.
So that's one of the things you do in your turn. You split groups and you take a food. Or you can buy a group on the table and add all them to your arc, but you have to have 1 food for each animal in that group.
Okay.
So it's a I split, you choose mechanism, sort of. So I'll be like, ooh, I know what I'll do. I go first before anybody else. I'm going to take this 5-point alligator and 5-point lion and split them off in a 2-person group. I get a food for doing that. Then everyone else will do whatever they want. I don't care. And then when it gets back to my turn, I'll have 2 food and I'll buy that group. That's 10 points. Mm-hmm. Well, we go around to Bertha, and Bertha's like, no, that ain't happening. And she splits that group into ones. Right. A 1, 5, and another 5. And I'm like, I don't know if I want to buy these. All right, fine. I'll split off another group and bide my time. Now, at the end of the game, and this happens when one person gets 10 or more animals on their arc, you are going to score points. Each animal is worth points equal to what's printed on their tile, except if you have a pair of animals, they're worth nothing. But if you have a herd of animals, which is 3 or more of that animal, they're all worth 5. So you want as many as you can of the same type, but there's only 5 of each animal, so getting 2 is very possible, which then makes them worth 0. Very quick game. We're talking 20 minutes. It reminds me like a step up maybe for a piece of cake. Solid style game. Good artwork. Every animal has different artwork. This game was originally from the folks who made Village, Eggerspiel.
Okay.
And Stronghold is doing it also, and this is solid. This is a great game. I would actually think it's because of timing, it's not going to happen, but this would be a Spiel des Jahres nominee, in my opinion. It's that style, and I really enjoy it. Heavy gamers will like it. It's kind of a break from the heavier games, and light gamers will love it because it's a simple concept.
All right.
And it's a fun theme as Billy Bob is trying to get more hippos on his arc. So that's Animal on Board, or probably Animals on Board.
Probably. You're thinking animal upon animal. It's a different animal.
I'm really not. That's you who thinks about that game every waking second.
All day. Another game I'm thinking of every waking second is Pandemic Legacy. We're in the home stretch, ready to start November into December. And I just wanted to say we're still working on it. And we actually had a game in which I didn't really want to win, if that makes any sense. There are some objectives. Again, I'm not going to spoil anything, but there are some objectives you're trying to complete. And we didn't, but we won the round anyway, and I almost didn't want to. Did that happen to you at all, Tom?
I'm trying to think. We're going to have to talk later into spoiler territory so I can figure out what you mean.
Okay. That
might have happened. I know when we lost 2 games, I was like, let's lose 2 more so we can open the box. But
yeah.
But I don't think
it was a win. You're happy about a win because things didn't get worse. But at the same time, I almost wish we had more time to do what we needed to do. But
now I know what you mean.
Home stretch.
I can understand that.
I did want to talk to you, Tom, about are we going to do our post discussion on this game, and if so, when?
What we'll do, folks, for that is we'll probably make a little bonus episode where we talk about that, and at the beginning, Eric will make some alarms go off and say, spoiler! But if you want it, because many people have listened to it,
right,
or have played through it, and I know, every time I go through New Time Stories, I'm super excited to talk to people who've played it before.
Right. I mean, I liked when we got to talk about Risk Legacy, and we're able to talk about the construction of the game, which I think is a fascinating thing to talk about. But you need to be past the spoiler wall in order to do that. So I think it will be a worthwhile discussion once we're done, and I'm looking forward to it. Do we need a date on the calendar as to when we're going to do this?
Yeah, when you finish your game.
Okay, fine.
No, here's my. I just thought of a new gaming personality.
Yeah.
It's the same guy who you meet with movies. All right, this is the guy who doesn't watch movies or TV shows hardly ever, but he's going to. So you'll be like, oh yeah, let's talk about the final 5 Cylons. Oh, I haven't watched Battlestar Galactica yet. Dude, it's been over for like 7 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm gonna watch it. Well, get around to it. Also, Darth Vader's Luke's father.
What?
You know, so I think the same thing's gonna happen in gaming, right? We're gonna end up talking to people like, oh, don't tell me about Pandemic Legacy. We're like, it's 2030.
Yeah.
Why haven't you played it yet?
Yeah.
And these people seem to be everywhere, so I can never have a conversation about this stuff.
Yeah. And what is the statute of limitations on something like this?
I'm thinking with movies, it's like 5 years. With board games, I'm saying 2 years. But even then, I mean, of course we'll be careful. Of course we'll say spoilers in a public setting. But like in my game group, I don't know. I want to be able to talk about this stuff. And if you don't want to play it, that's fine, but...
Well, my particular game group, there was sort of an offshoot group that was playing through it, and they were moving faster than my home group is. And they finished. And so now, there was a time that I was like, I know things you guys don't know, and now they're in that situation giggling at me. So I want to finish.
All right. Well, let's talk about a game I just played from Blue Cocker Games, who I really enjoyed their first 2 games. The first one was Medieval Academy, which is a great drafting game. Meeple Wars is basically a prequel to Carcassonne.
Oh, what?
Before Carcassonne, and it's just thematically. Before all the meeples got together and built a big city and stuff, they all are fighting each other.
Okay.
Now, I can tell you authoritatively that blue won the war. I know this because in this game, the blue meeples look like the ones in Carcassonne. The other colors look like other kind of weird meeples.
Oh, weird.
But I haven't seen them. It just seems kind of biased towards blue. I don't know.
Okay.
But the way this game works is you have a little hex grid in the middle of the table, and you have these... each turn you have these buildings with workers in the buildings, and the workers move along these tracks. And when a track gets to a certain spot, you get to do a special ability, which might be build another building. And so you can have up to 4 buildings in front of you. And then you are sending out your meeples to fight and kill other meeples and or attack your opponent's buildings. The first person to get 6 points is the winner. Destroying other people's buildings will give you points equal to the strength of that building, although if other people help you, you split those points. Every time you kill another player's meeple in an attack, for every meeple you've killed, you get a ferocity point. And in defense, for every 2 meeples you kill, you get a ferocity point. So it's better to attack than defend. And once you get 7 ferocity points, boom, you have another victory point. So the game is kind of like, get out there and fight. Go, fight, run, shoot, blow up their meeples. It's a very fast game. We're talking 30 minutes or so, but gives you different options. Ooh, I'm going to pick this building this time. I'm going to try this building that shoots a catapult across the board. I'm going to build this building that lets me put out more meeples faster than other people. And it encourages attacking, so you're not turtling up and hunkering down in your area. I'm going to defend this spot. And there's also a little bit of exploration. I'm going to go this way and turn over a tile and see what's over there. So I really enjoyed this one. It's a solid game that is Meeple War.
Cool.
All right, let's move on.
Mr.
Vassal. Yes. Do you have any superpowers?
Are you really working on Nothing Personal, Junior?
What are your top 10 candy bars?
And now the Dice Tower will authoritatively, definitely, possibly, maybe answer your questions.
Tom, which way to the bathroom?
Derek is talking about Tasty Minstrel Games with their Kickstarter campaign for Bomb Squad, and they had one of the stretch goals being another game, Bomb Squad Academy. Bomb Squad Academy's MSRP is $20, while the total Kickstarter pledge was $35 for Bomb Squad and Bomb Squad Academy. I feel a little at a loss here, considering one of the stretch goals that was not hit was a robot miniature or 2 with the game. Bomb Squad Academy has 100 or so cards and a chipboard or two and some wood tokens, and they shipped it to me separately. Am I alone in thinking Tasty Minstrel Games is crazy for this? I really didn't care if they included the extra game, and would have much rather have even just one robot miniature for the game Bomb Squad. Now I have Bomb Squad, which I gladly would have kickstarted for $35 without Bomb Squad Academy, and some game I don't ever know I'll play.
My first answer to you, Derek, would be Bomb Squad is not that long of a name. Abbreviating it changes the whole tenor of your question.
That is true. He did abbreviate Bomb Squad to BS and Bomb Squad Academy to BSA in his email. I translated it for the audio audience.
I just find that it just changed how that question read.
That's a lot of typing. He mentioned those titles a lot.
I'm not a fan of Tasty Minstrel adding in extra games as stretch goals because if I don't want that game, I mean, like, free game. And also I found that those little extra games they throw in always seem to be not that good. Although I believe Eric liked this one.
I did like Bomb Squad Academy, so I guess, bonus. But I actually haven't played Bomb Squad yet because I think your reaction to that was not terribly good.
It wasn't bad as much as I just feel that I thought Bomb Squad is fine. It's just that I feel like the audience is really small. You're a cooperative, puzzle-oriented game with a time limit. It's just, that doesn't, there's not a lot of people who want to do that.
Right.
I don't know. I mean, stretch goals are stretch goals, right? I don't like when I look at a game, I'm like, I only want that if it reaches this particular stretch goal. Because then I have to, then I'm sitting there saying, okay, I only want this game if it has those plastic miniatures or those cool wooden pawns. But if it doesn't get this much money, it's not going to get there. And if I don't pledge, it might not reach that goal. So I don't know how keen I am on stretch goals are kind of a weird thing. We put stretch goals in our campaign for the Dice Tower because people do that, and people almost expect it.
Yeah, well, I mean, a few of them especially were, if you want this particular service or this additional employee, we need that much money to
Right. That's fine. And I understand that stretch goals actually make sense and exciting. But people really I'm surprised how people get hung up on stretch goals. Oh, please pledge for this game so that I can get more stuff with my game. So it's a subculture. I don't know if it's bad or good. It's just an odd one. Getting an extra game, again, not necessarily a bad idea. And in this case, it worked out because Eric said Bomb Squad Academy is good.
Yeah. It is weird, though, to add something outside the realm of the game that you're talking about when you could have put resources into something that goes into the game you are pledging toward. I'm not convinced that creating a mold for a plastic miniature is the same cost as putting out a card game with some cardboard components.
Yeah.
That may not have been an equal trade, so I don't know the numbers, I don't know the costs in this situation, but putting out an additional card game that they're planning to sell as well may have been a lot less expensive or a lot less sunk costs than molding a miniature.
Right, because when you mold the miniature, you're just making the cost of the game go up when you make another game. That's also expensive, but hopefully in the long run will pay for itself with additional sales.
Right. Yes.
Tassin says he was listening to my praise for Time Stories, and he thinks we missed a huge comparison point when talking about price and value for the money. And he was talking about the similarity of Time Stories to a role-playing game, in which the initial cost is higher than many board games, but the value for what you're paying is immense. And as a longtime role player who switched to board gaming 4 years ago, I'm always amazed at how rarely the two genres of gaming are compared. Many co-op games that gain a lot of praise for the story and their systems take their concepts directly from role-playing games. I agree on the second part, that yes, board games get a lot of influence from role-playing games. I'm not so sure that I can compare them cost-wise. And I think the reason for that is if I buy a role-playing system, let's say I buy Pathfinder or Dungeons & Dragons or, the Star Wars role-playing system, I have a system that technically can be played forever in various ways. And with the advent of the internet, there's a huge amount of resources where I never have to buy modules for that. I really don't. I can,
Right.
and they're nice because they're prepackaged. With time stories, I can't really just make up my own stuff. I actually have to get a packaged module. Now, people have made ones on the internet, but those still require you to print stuff out and put it all together, which would be very hard
Right.
to do, I think, without looking at it. Give it to
Right.
the guy at Staples. Okay, I need you to print this out and cut it. And don't show me.
Yeah, do not show me. Make sure they're in
I'll
order.
just assume you did a good job.
I won't know
Or you
for
have to
another
find
week and
someone
a half.
that you're friends with. All right, I need you to get this job done.
Yeah, well, I've heard actually Space Cowboys has a template system, don't they, for putting together your own
They
decks?
do. Z was looking at it. He was trying to find clues about upcoming time story stuff. So it's cool. I just don't. I think downloading other people's seems maybe there is a way to do it. I don't know about it.
Yeah. But I think it is apt if you're talking strictly about purchasing prepackaged modules for an RPG. That sort of makes sense, because once you've played through that prepackaged module, you don't necessarily want to do that again. Maybe you could with different characters, but the plot points would be spoiled for you. Jeff says his local game stores are, to put it gently, not very good. He lives in a reasonably large city, so there are several of them, but they are either dingy and unwelcoming, have no gaming space, or are only partially dedicated to board games. As a result, I never actually play games there. I far prefer, to play at home and invite my friends over, or go to a pub or one of the gaming cafes that have sprung up. I'd like to have an amazing local game store, but I don't feel motivated to support the ones that exist. Am I stuck in a catch-22 where by not supporting local stores, I'm dooming my city to mediocrity? Or do the bad stores need to fail for better ones to pop up?
I think Jeff's answering his own question here, except I would say that this whole dooming your city to mediocrity, how does supporting a bad game store help anything? If you keep it in business, yay, I got a bad game store in town that we can't play at. I don't see how that helps.
Yeah. Well, I guess the theory is that if a bad game store fails, if you take a market analysis of the city, they go, well, game stores don't work in this town.
I don't know, because a good entrepreneur will say, look, I can do it better than anyone else.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm not feeling real bad for Jeff here. He's talking about, oh yeah, I'm stuck to playing in gaming cafes.
Right. You've got gaming
He said
cafes.
gaming cafes.
Plural.
I live in one of the biggest cities in the United States, or close to it, Miami. We have one game store. We had two, and one closed down. We have no gaming cafes. It is sad. So
I've been really remiss. I have not visited the one in New Haven yet, Elm City Games, and I've heard that it's hopping in the evenings and that they're doing really well over there, but I haven't visited yet.
Elm City Games, it's called?
Yeah. Did we actually answer Jeff's question? I don't know if we did.
No, he says he's
You
doing
probably
it.
shouldn't support.
Yeah.
The only thing I'd consider is if you can find, of the 3 or 4 that you said are terrible or mediocre, if you could communicate with them and say, if you were a little better at doing A, B, and C, I'd visit and I'd spend some money here in the store. And maybe try and cultivate that one to survive and the other ones to die. Make it your own game. It's a meta game about games. Try and cultivate the good store. But that's all I got for you.
Fish, which is a great name, by the way.
Sure.
I saw a movie about that. Fish says, what's the origin of Shut the Door? And can you explain how it became so intertwined with Dice Tower?
Once upon a time, there was a little door who wanted to grow up to be a big door.
The Giving Door.
I don't know.
By Eric
That's all I've
Summerer. No, I just accidentally said it in one of my videos. And to actually cover it up, I just started saying it in other videos. But more so than that, I'm a real big fan of having something that's a thing, right? Whatever that thing might be. Mm-hmm. Sometimes these things don't work, but sometimes they just stick until you forget why they do that. And almost every popular radio host or game show or whoever, they all have their little ticks or things that they do deliberately, and sometimes you don't even remember why they started. But I like that concept. I like when, Well, if someone said in the board game industry says shut the door, you'll think of the Dice Tower. To the point where if they say it in any movie or TV show, my kids are like, yeah.
Can I talk to you, Chief? Shut the door. Dad, do they know you? Jeff asks, now that we've had some time for perspective, do you think the initial shortage of product has had a significant negative effect on the continued popularity of Dicemasters in the long term?
I think it's pretty safe to say that it has not. I think it kept it from being maybe bigger when it first came out, because it came out with a pretty big bang. It sold out instantly. However, I feel pretty sure that the company would not have released 10 expansions for it.
If it was totally failing, yeah, probably
But I mean,
not.
they just announced another one, Deadpool, which was a surprise to no one. Right. I mean, I was trying to think of a snarky thing there, but yeah, basically, I mean, they have that one, and I believe we know of one more set coming beyond that. Maybe they would stop then. Who knows? I never count on future sets until they announce them, but at the same time, it does seem like people are still buying them. Mark wants to ask a spoiler-filled question about Pandemic Legacy. He wants to know, he says he hasn't heard if the last month of Pandemic Legacy can be played over and over as its own game.
Well, I mean, we've been saying that, you know, the game is going to change. You really can't replay stuff. He wants to know if you can just play December.
Would the final month hold up to repeated plays, and would it make a good game on its own, or is the final month of Pandemic Legacy only special in context with the rest of the game and not an enjoyable game to repeat multiple times? There's going to be the tiniest bit spoilers here for anyone who's not played this game at all. But I'll say briefly, and Rado, Richard Ham, really believes in this, that you can simply just play regular Pandemic on the final board, and it's just changed. And you can play with the changes that have occurred, which are hard to explain now.
Right.
For everything else that's involved in that final month, I could play it maybe one more time. I don't know that I'd play it more than twice. But I cannot explain why or what that means. I'm not interested in it. How's that? I'm not interested in it, but Richard Ham, Rado, strongly disagrees with me there. But really? I feel like I closed the door on it, and I might play through the whole thing again, but I don't need to keep playing that final scenario.
Keeping with the legacy theme, Andy wants to know if we'll see many more companies re-releasing their games with a legacy angle, seeing as it makes games more consumable and consequently gamers spend more money. What classic or traditional kids' games could be improved or spiced up with a legacy variant?
Here's the deal. I know about a legacy game that exists at this point, which I'm really surprised that this particular game has been made into legacy.
But it hasn't been announced yet, so you can't talk about it.
So you can make any wild guesses you want, but literally that could be 8,000 games.
Sure. Well, I would say that, there's more than just a quick money grab here. I mean, we've talked with Rob Daviau about how difficult it is to design these games. This is not something you just throw together. If you want to do this right, there's a lot of work that goes into making a legacy game.
Yeah, I don't know. I think we'll see some legacy games come. So far, every legacy game that I know of or that has been announced has had Rob Daviau involved with it.
That's true.
I think there's a couple on Kickstarter that don't have him involved. Even this one that I was mentioning might have him involved.
Well, there was the we didn't play test this at all legacies.
Yeah, but that was silliness, right? That's not...
That really was. In fact, forget what I said about being a quick cash grab. I think that was a quick cash grab.
But it was also like a blatant cash grab.
Right. It was still entertaining, and just as all of the we didn't play test this games are, it fit the theme for sure.
Yeah, it's an interesting subject. I don't know. We'll see. I'm not really. I know this is like my most asked question these days. What do you want to see made in Legacy? What do you want to see? You know what I want to see? New Legacy games. That's why I'm super excited about Seafall. It's its own game.
Right, it's unique.
Although I'm also super excited about Pandemic Legacy Season 2.
Yes.
Got to play Season 1 first, Eric.
I'm working on it. Slowly.
All right, Brad says he has the first Cash and Guns with its Yakuza's expansion. He says that he hears the second edition is better. And then with that expansion, more Cash and Guns, it's great. Is it worth it to scrap the first edition and get the second? And should you do this with every game? When a new thing comes out, trash your edition and get the second.
Well, don't trash it.
Well, I don't think he actually said that, but...
Right.
With Cash and Guns, I would get rid of the first edition to keep the second. However, I do miss that Yakuza expansion. Although they have hinted that we may see that in the future for Cash and Guns too. But
I have not made the switch. I still have first edition of Cash and Guns with Yakuzas. But I do agree that the second edition is better.
The second edition is just it's a very clean system. It's a system I can teach people. I don't have to say, okay, if you have the bang, bang, bang card, reveal it. Now, I know that they're pointing at you, and I know you might have a bang card, but you still don't show that. It's just very confusing all around.
Yeah, there's some timing issues, and also the division of cash is more difficult.
It's actually kind of mathy.
Yeah.
All right, so many games have math. I'm looking down to make sure Eric didn't put in this list. I'm trying not to spoil Eric's list.
No, not this one.
Okay. Whew. Ever since I did that. Okay, so anyhow, but you shouldn't do that necessarily with every second edition. Wait and find out. If there's like barely any changes, don't worry about it. Some companies make upgrade kits. Sometimes it's a huge overhaul, like Descent Descent second edition was a huge overhaul for Descent first. Sometimes it's very minor changes. It's basically up to you, I would think. Well, I think we should end questions there, Eric.
Oh, sure. Sounds good.
I keep thinking about math, so let's get to it.
Let's do it.
It's a Dice Tower Top 10!
The Dice Tower's Top 10 list is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc. Cool Stuff Inc. Cool stuff in stock at coolstuffinc.com.
The two most hated subjects in school are English and math.
Okay, that's a good way to start.
Well, I think that's a very reasonable thing to say.
Well, this subject came up several episodes back when I had reviewed a couple of math games that really weren't very good and just said, here are several alternatives that we just spouted off that were much better at teaching math than these supposedly educational games that I don't even want to talk about anymore. I donated them to my kids' school. They can use them there.
Yes, but...
So this is a good list to talk about good games that can teach math.
Well, that's what I was saying, is that I think math and English are the two most hated subjects, but math is so easy when it comes to using games to teach things.
Sure.
So much so, there's math in everything, right? And so I had to think a bit about making this list, because technically every game teaches math to some degree.
Anything with a score in it, yeah.
Well, okay, I shouldn't say every game, but I would say a majority of games have some sort of math in them. Or English, right? They're the two subjects that line themselves up for games.
Yeah.
Usually one of the two is involved somehow. Sometimes other subjects, but as a math teacher, you can justify pretty much anything.
Yep.
Then, of course, there's various forms of math. There's geometry, there's logic, there's arithmetic. My list is going to mostly focus on arithmetic.
Yeah, I'm there with you.
With a bit of probability thrown in, and that's because we've already done deduction as its own list.
Right.
And I might do a spatial geometry list at some point in the future. I think that's actually a good list, which I just thought of now. But I don't believe we've ever done it, but I believe there's enough games existing to do it.
Interesting.
So anyhow, with all that being said, what math games did we pick? I also will point out in my 10 through 1 of all the top 10 lists that I've done in a while, this is one where I didn't really care that much about the order.
That's funny. I was actually going to say something very similar. I got my 10 and said, yep, these are the strongest ones. But then putting them in order was very difficult. What really makes this better? I think I may have leaned a little bit toward this is more pure in teaching math, whereas some of the ones higher up on the list are more tangential. But, yeah, order doesn't really matter that much.
We also had more crossover than I thought.
Yes. And one in particular I am surprised you had on the list that I thought I was sort of skimping out on and I was going to have to justify, but you put it there too. So, here we go.
Number 10.
We're going to hear about Tom's number 10 in a little bit, but I think he's going to be going for coal, so I'm going to stockpile and wait for him to talk about it.
You're really not even trying to be clever anymore.
What? I could stockpile coal in a lot of games.
My number 10 is acquire, although I could easily replace this with stockpile, which fits in really well with what Eric just said. But any kind of stock market game is good at teaching math. Buy low, sell high. And especially when, how much is this worth? Okay, I have 5 shares. They're each worth a certain amount of money. I would put this on my list way above, say, Monopoly. Although, to be fair, you can teach Monopoly. You can use Monopoly to teach math. It's great for that, right? Yeah. Here's $200.
Especially if you're playing with the luxury tax rule and the mortgages.
Luxury tax. Give me $200 or 10% of your worth. I don't know how much I'm worth. Figure it out, kid.
Yeah. You have to decide before you start figuring it out. I love that rule.
I'll just pay $200.
Yeah, I don't want to do the math. Here's the $200.
But anyway, Acquire is just an excellent little game. I was just looking on Kickstarter. There was like this mega Acquire they're trying to kickstart that has hexes instead of squares and more companies.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, Hasbro kind of smacked them down on the name anyway. But still, Acquire, my number 10.
Number 9.
My number 9 is Quarriors and or Dicemasters, the die-rolling game that you battle with various creatures, and you're doing a lot of adding up the values of various attacks and whether you can distribute those attacks with your defenders, and probably more so with Dicemasters in how you decide to face different challenges, but Quarriors does it too. Lots of attack and defense and adding them all together, especially for kids, a good way to keep those calculations moving. My number 9, Quarriors and Dicemasters.
My number 9 is Ka-Ching. Now, this is a 2-player game from GameRight. Have you ever played this one, Eric?
I haven't, no.
I really like Ka-Ching. It's essentially a bunch of columns, and you have different colored cards that are numbered, I believe, from 1 to 6 in these columns. Maybe it's 2 to 6. 2 to 6 sounds right. And on your turn, you start with some money, some card money, yay. And on your turn, you can do one of two things. You can buy the bottom card of any column for the number that it is. So if it's a 3, it costs me $3. If it's a 4, it costs me $4, whatever. Or you can sell 2 cards of the same color. And if you do that, you multiply them by each other, and that's how much money you get. That's it. That's the whole game. Most money wins at the end. So obviously you want to get the 6 and the 5 so you can sell them for 30. Mm-hmm. But your opponent is probably not going to let you do that if they can pull that off. If I see you have the 6 green and the 5 green's coming up, you're not getting it if I can afford it at that point in time. But at the same time, is that helping me to buy it? It's simple. It's addition to buy, multiplication to sell. And it works really well. I believe this was a reprint of an older game, and GameRight brought it. Haven't heard much talk about it. In fact, I went to look at my own review of it, and it was a written review. So that shows how long it's been since I've talked about this one. But it's
been a while.
I enjoy it. A great math game. Ka-ching! Also fun to say.
Number 8.
For number 8, I put in Mice and Mystics, but you could actually use this as a placeholder for pretty much any stat-based adventure game. In Mice and Mystics, you've got characters with strengths and weaknesses and different stats, and when you encounter an enemy, you're going to be rolling dice, matching up to those stats, looking at their attack versus your defense. So you're using a lot of addition and subtraction as you take your armor class and your weapons class and add them all together. You could do this with any standard RPG as well. But adding those stats together, figuring out how to apply them to the situation is a constant calculation in Mice and Mystics, and I think it appeals a lot to my family, and it might do the same for yours. My number 8, Mice and Mystics.
My number 8 is coming up later on Eric's list. So we will just have to wait and see where the dice fall on that one.
Number 7.
Number 7 is Shot and Totten and or Battle Line. That's the more recent GMT version of the game.
I consider this one.
This one, you're making combinations of numbered cards on your side of the barrier and trying to beat what your opponent can do. And part of it is the calculation of what is still possible for your opponent to do. And so you have to sort of total things up, look at the probabilities. Actually, it's not as much probability as the certainty that your opponent will be able to or has the ability to beat you in that side. Because if you can prove that they can't, based on the cards that are left in the game, you can just claim that particular stone, which is neat, but requires a good amount of calculation. So you're doing a lot of adding and planning in Shot and Totten or Battle Line, my number 7.
My number 7 is Power Grid, which was Eric's number 10. Mm-hmm. Is this one you're surprised about?
No, this isn't the one I was surprised about, but it is one that once I saw your list, I stuck mine in number 10. I actually hadn't even considered this.
See, I always do my list.
My number 10.
I always do my list before Eric. So
yeah. And that happens very, very rarely, but I think I just didn't consider it because it's not really a kid's game.
Okay, and that's the thing, and that's why it's not higher on my list, even though my number order doesn't matter that much. And it's also the only super heavy game like this on my list. But there's no denying how important math is in Power Grid. You need to add up all those routes you're building. You need to figure out the prices on the goods you're buying. You need to make sure you're not spending too much on the auction. You need to figure out how many cities your grid, your stations can power. You're doing math the entire game. So if you have an older kid, maybe a high school kid, and you just want them to brush up on basic math skills to the point where they can do them much more quickly in their head, not this 2 plus 2 is 4, but 17 plus 13 plus 19 plus 16. What is that now? Power Grid's really good for that.
My eldest is like really excited about math, but he hates competitive games. I wonder. We could do like the short game, the 7 cities game. I might try this.
What? That's competitive, though.
Yeah, but he might be interested if I tell him it's a math challenge game. I got a math game for you. He'd be like, what? Yeah, okay. I'm in. I'm doing it. I'll tell you how it fails miserably later.
Number 6.
My number 6 is going to show up on Tom's list very soon. So I'll just pass the dice. I can't take it.
Yeah, I'm going to do the same thing because my number 6 is also on Eric's list. Same thing he said.
Number 5.
My number 5 was Tom's number 8, and that is Tumbling Dice. This one, as we talk a lot about addition, this one's all about multiplication because you're flicking these dice and you've got the face that is face up when the die lands, when it stops, and it is based on its platform position, gets multiplied. So as you're figuring out everybody's scores, maybe who you need to aim for if you're trying to knock off somebody's stuff, you have to constantly do that multiplication to know what that particular die is worth. And as an exercise in teaching kids how to move quickly through those multiplication tables, Tumbling Dice is a great tool. It's my number 5.
Yeah, that's really what it is. It's a simple, quick game, and you just have to do some quick math, addition and multiplication, and yet it's really fun, and the kids don't mind that. And pretty soon, they all know what 6 times 4 equals. They'll never forget that one.
Right. Yes, that's the one. That's the bonus.
My number 5 is Take It to the Limit, although you could substitute Take It Easy, which is a game in which you have a bunch of tiles that you're placing on a board. One person pulls them randomly, and everyone else chooses the same tile, and you place it on your board. These tiles are forming rows of different numbers, and you're trying to get all the same number in the same row and also get other bonuses. So this game teaches you to gauge numbers and say, am I going to get more points if I do this or more points if I do that? A lot of games do that. But this one also adds a little bit of a spatial aspect to it, a little bit. But it just works really well because you're kind of concentrating on your own board and no one else's board. So that's number 5. Take It to the Limit.
Number 4.
Yahtzee is the game that I thought I was going to have to justify until I saw that Tom put it in as his number 6. Here's my reason for putting it on the list. Not only are you adding up the values of the various dice that you're going to put down on each round, but also there's that calculation. You got the top half of the score sheet and the bottom half. And if you want the bonus, you have to have reached a certain score on the top half of the sheet. And it adds up to at least 3 of each number. And so if you are short on, say, 2s, you have to start doing that mental calculation. Well, I'm down 2 points, so I need to get one more of, say, 5s in order to make up that deficit. Or if I'm able to get 4 6s, well, I know I have a bit of a buffer now that I can work with. And I distinctly remember in my mother teaching me this game that was always a consideration, a calculation to be looking at. And so that's something you're always having to think about as you make your push your luck decisions in this game. So it really works as a math game, a game to teach those concepts, not only the probability, but adding up to see if you can still get that bonus on the top half of the sheet. Yahtzee, my number 4.
I agree. That was why it was my number 6. I was going to say the same thing. As a kid, when I played Yahtzee all the time, I didn't care about anything other than getting that bonus.
I know. It's all about that.
I was like, all right, I got 3 6s. Oh, I only got 2 5s. Can I still do it?
Can I still if I get an extra 2 and an extra 3, I can do it.
Right. And it's pretty simple stuff. And even more if you play something like Triple Yahtzee, which you can just play with regular Yahtzee anyway. Have you ever played Triple Yahtzee?
I have not.
It's essentially you're playing 3 games at the same time.
Okay.
So you can, let's say I roll 2 1s, I can put that in game 1, or and then I roll 3 more 1s. I'll say, forget it. I'm just going to put that in game 2. So you're tripling the length of the game, but it gives you a little bit more options of where to put things, right? You roll that large straight twice in a row. Boom, boom.
Right.
I like Triple Yahtzee a little bit better than Yahtzee.
Sure.
All right, my number 4 is Hare and Tortoise. Now, to just be clear, this is the older version, the one that won the Spiel des Jahres. Each player this came out in the late 70s, I believe. Each player is a hare running around a board. The first one to get to the end wins. You are going to spend carrot cards to do that. You move forward, and the number of spaces you move forward, you have to pay the square of that many spaces in carrots. So if I want to move 8, I have to pay 64. I think. Or something like that. It's certainly an exponential growth.
Right.
For how far you want to move. So after a while, you're like, it's not worth it. I think
it's a pyramidal growth. It's 1, 3, 6, 10, 15.
It's something like that. I forget what it is exactly. I do know that when you also can move backwards and you get 10 carrots per space you move backwards. So there's multiplication moving backwards. You got to figure out how far you want to move backwards before going forwards again. Because if you want to move forward, you can move forward at a very slow, steady pace. But when's the best time to use a bunch of carrots at one time to jump out ahead? It's a very interesting game. Definitely very mathy. I like it a lot. That's Hare and Tortoise.
Number 3.
My number 3 is a tile-laying game that comes in a pouch, kind of like bananagrams. It's called Samoku, like Sudoku and Sum together. It's a very colorful game. You have a die that you roll that has 3, 4, and 5 on it. That in a particular round, if you roll a 4, you are trying to make multiples of 4. So you're laying down these number tiles and putting them into a grid pattern in the center of the table, and you're trying to come up with multiples of 4 in order to score and get rid of your tiles. Constantly making you reevaluate what's on the board, what your possibilities are, what you need to add to the tiles you have in front of you in order to get to those multiples. Really a good tool for teaching math. My number 3, Samoku. That's Sumoku.
My number 3 is Kingdoms, although you could substitute the Beowulf movie game, which Fantasy Flight made, which was essentially the same game. Kingdoms is a game where you're drawing tiles and placing them on a board. Some are positive numbers, some are negative numbers, some are multipliers. And you're also placing your own kingdoms out on this board. And when you place a kingdom in a spot, that's going to get you points equal to the sum of all the numbers in the row and column that it's in, multiplied by the number of the kingdom you put out. So if I put a 2 kingdom and there's a 6 in that column, that's 12 points. But if there's a negative 4, it's minus 8. So it teaches you to add and subtract both negative and positive numbers. and also a little bit of risk reward. How late should I wait before I put out my kingdoms? All the good spots might be taken. I put one out too early, someone else will put negative numbers next to it. This is, I think, kind of a classic game that not many people talk about these days, which seems, we're talking about a lot of games we don't normally talk about, which I like. So my number 3 is Kingdoms.
Number 2.
My number 2 is probably the most, well, close to the most directly connected to probability, and that's Liar's Dice. Especially as you have lots of people around the table playing this game. Everyone has a certain number of dice, and you have to think about what the average would be if everybody was rolling these dice, and how many 3s should there be around the table? What bid is sort of outside the realm of possibility for somebody to be claiming that there are? And as these dice are removed throughout the course of the game, how does that calculation change? Constantly trying to evaluate what is a valid, a believable bid and what isn't, and I think a good tool for adding things together. That would be Liar's Dice, my number 2.
My number 2 is Numbers League. Numbers League is a superhero game where you're making superheroes made up of heads and torsos and legs, and they each have numbers, sometimes negative numbers on them. And when you have a hero put together, that's the number value of that hero, and you need to beat villains. So a villain might be 17, so to beat that villain, I'll need 17 points worth of heroes exactly. So I might send 2 of my heroes out or 3 of my heroes out, sometimes maybe 1 hero out. And when you add in the expansion, which added even more negative numbers and multipliers, there's all sorts of cool things that you can do. But it's really just all about math, but it's done with some great superhero art. I mean, the superheroes are all silly, and you get to put together all kinds of funny superheroes. You're putting together to get the numbers you need to get the villains. And there's no superpowers in this game at all. It's just but it's a numbers game, but it's put on top of a charming theme. And I think the game is really good to teach kids with. That's Numbers League.
This is one I really need to check out for my kids. I think they'd probably enjoy it.
Yeah, superheroes.
And finally, number 1.
Last for me is Secret Code 13+4. This is a hobby game about working your way through a series of corridors, kind of a maze toward the center of the board. And you've got numbers that have been seeded around the board. You are rolling dice, and then in whatever way you can make sense of them, combining these die results to form the values that you're trying to get past. So you could multiply these 2. You could multiply 2 dice and subtract a 3rd die. You can do whatever you can make sense of with these dice in order to get the results you want. Of course, you're trying to do it most efficiently because once you've used the dice to form one number, you only have a couple of dice left to roll for the next number. And you're trying to get as far as you can through the pattern and get to the center before your opponents. It's a really neat game and offers a lot of creativity in getting through these obstacles. Very task-oriented, and you could start very simply with just addition and subtraction, but as the kids are more able to handle division and multiplication, or even like fractions and stuff, you can get crazy if you want to. Secret Code 13+4, an excellent tool for teaching math. It's my number 1.
My number 1 is Eric's number 6, and I do not necessarily like this game as much as Eric, and I think it's safe to say I may be the worst player of this game on Earth.
I think it's safe to say you are probably the worst player of this game on Earth.
You didn't have to agree, but the game is...
Oh, I do. That's what I'm here for.
Can't stop. I believe I'm following the instructions, Eric.
Yes, it is true. You're just really susceptible to suggestion.
And there will come the day that I will win. On one turn.
Then you'll be done. You will have beaten the game.
I think so, and I think I should stop at that point. Can't stop.
Yes.
All about
at that point, you should stop. Then you can take a big red marker and cross out the can't in your copy.
Okay, I will do that.
Stop.
If that happens, if I beat Can't Stop, I'll buy a copy and tape up the word can't and put it on my shelf. And I will now
frame it.
Stop.
Now it's just called stop.
You're right. Framing it makes more sense. All right. Yeah, you're right. I'll glue my pieces into positions that they were. And put it up on the wall.
Make a shadow box. Go to Michael's.
Stop. I did. Anyhow, Can't Stop is a game about teaching probabilities. It is an excellent game for teaching probabilities. Hey, it's only a few spaces up if you want to roll a bunch of 12s. Yeah, that's hard, kids. And I love teaching kids probabilities because it's an excellent life skill to have. And this game is good at doing that. And also, when should you cut your losses? Don't be like Dad. He's a moron. So, like I said, I think other games have surpassed this for me. But for pure teaching math and probability to kids, Can't Stop is amazing.
Plus, not to mention that you're rolling 4 dice and you have to combine them in different ways. So there's a lot of quick addition to figure out what combinations are valid for you in a particular roll.
Yes, very good. All right, let's see what our contributors say.
Derek Davis here from the What Did You Play This Week podcast, and this is a weird category for me because the games categorized as math games on BGG are mostly math activities. As for a great math game that uses mathematical principles to facilitate the game, the simplest one with the biggest payoff is Lost Cities. It requires basic addition, multiplication, and subtraction for scoring, as well as a basic mathematical deduction to determine the probability of cards you might get as the deck dwindles. So for my favorite game that incorporates math, I choose Lost Cities.
Tony Marty, Rolling Dice Taking Names. 6 Nipped is my game for math because it really helps you with your subtraction as you try to figure out which card you're fixing to play is closer in the other cards in the rows. Marty?
It had to be My Happy Farm. Not only does this game teach Euro mechanics, but also a lot of good math in there for kids to learn when they have to make decisions on when to buy seeds and when to sell seeds. So from that alone, just makes it a good little mathy game.
Jonathan from the Snakes Cast. Plenty of games out there will involve arithmetic, but arithmetic isn't nearly as interesting as other mathematical areas, like, for example, game theory or probability analysis. And if you want an intense lesson on both of those things, the one game that you absolutely can't beat is poker. It's popular for a reason. It'll teach you an awful lot of lessons about mathematics and other things besides.
This is Trent Howe with the Board Game Family, and we know there are plenty of games that teach kids math skills, but the one we think does it best is Secret Code 13 Plus 4 by Haba. It's a game where players roll number dice and use math to create combinations of the dice to advance on the board. There are a lot of games that teach addition and subtraction, but Secret Code 13 Plus 4 also allows for multiplication and division. If kids have only learned to add and subtract, they can play the game at that level, but as they learn new ways to use numbers, they can step up their game and play accordingly.
This is Brian from Cult of the Old. Lost Cities comes to mind, but I'm going to take something I recently covered, Hare and Tortoise. You have to count up your carrots, and there's some minor series action going. Where to move, let's say, 5 spaces. It's 5 plus 4 plus 3 plus 2 plus 1. So you need 15 carrots to move 5 spaces. Now, I wouldn't have high expectations on your 3-year-old and discourage them by expecting them to know these things on series, but it's a good opportunity to teach some simple math and teach them the series part when you're ready.
All right. Looks like most people agree with us. I'll tell you what, Lost Cities was like my number 11.
It was literally my number 11, and it got bumped by Power Grid. Or it was my number 10, and it got bumped by Power Grid.
I don't know if I would use poker to teach kids anything.
We never said kids. We just said teach math.
No, but Jonathan, I'm pretty sure he was talking about kids. Yes, we can teach them gambling's a bad idea. And you know what I actually do when I teach math? I always show kids probability, and I'm like, now this is your chance of winning this and this. And they're like, oh, that's not good at all. I'm like, you're right, so don't do it. But they will anyway.
Right.
Okay, the People's Choice. Number 10, they said no thanks. That's another game I considered because you got to add all those numbers and subtract the chips.
True.
Ticket to Ride. I'm assuming this one just basically is all that addition
just
you do at the end of the game.
Adding up around the table. I mean, I guess, it's a lot of weird numbers, especially I've played with groups that don't add it up until the end of the game. Or you can certainly do that just to check your score.
I always add up everything at the end of the game. I don't. Me and Laura don't even keep score until the end. Although you have to in UK. Anyway, Stone Age. Stone Age teaches division. When you go to a certain spot and you roll like 3 dice, you sent 3 workers there, then you divide by 4, and that's how many stone you get.
Right.
So there's not many games that have a heavy emphasis on division, and this would be one of them. Yahtzee. Hey, people agreed with both of us. You feel better now, Eric?
I feel much better. I mean, I guess I thought I was going to be on the defensive, and I shouldn't have been.
Carcassonne. Are people just going to put Ticket to Ride and Carcassonne on every list?
Yes.
Okay. Number 5, Monopoly. All right, I said that already.
It teaches money, yes, yeah.
I'm not going to jump all over this one. There's math in the game. 4, Can't Stop. 3, 7 Wonders, probably at the end of the game when you have to do all that addition.
All the science cards, yeah.
2, Lost Cities, and 1, Power Grid.
There we go.
All right. Well, folks, those are our top 10 math games. Tell us on our guild, on our forums, which you can find from our website. Tell us what you think your favorite math games are. What did we miss? What do you like to use to help teach math? And I'll tell you this right now. You can use games to teach math. That is an indisputable fact that games are excellent for teaching math. Do it. It will help your kids learn. Don't do their addition in games for them. Well, you can do it at the beginning or to make things go quicker. But it's good to teach them and say, okay, I'm giving you 100. How much change am I getting back? Stuff like that's useful because they're going to end up working somewhere where they're going to need to get people change back.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, that looks like another end of a show. I think it's time for us to move on.
I think it is.
So until next time, I'm Tom Vassell.
I'm Eric Summerer.
And you've been listening to The Dice Tower.
Thanks for listening. Promotional consideration has been provided by game publishers in the form of review copies of games. This episode number 455 was recorded on April 21st, 2016. Coming up next week, what is the best way to get a publisher to look at your game? Find out what our contributors have to say. Support for this podcast comes from listeners like you. Thank you for your continued support. And speaking of support, the Jack Vassell Memorial Fund is dedicated to providing support to members of the board gaming community in their hour of need. Find out how you can help at jackvassell.org. The Dice Tower is produced by Tom and me, with production assistance from Jason Thompson, Itai Perez, Eric Matthews, and Rob Searing. Our theme was composed by Timothy Pinkham. Feline grooming services provided by Catacombs. And hosting is provided by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games at great prices at CoolStuffInc.com. We love feedback. Visit the Dice Tower Guild at BoardGameGeek.com, email us at thedicetower@gmail.com, or follow us on Facebook. And of course, you can find more from the Dice Tower Network, including the Out of Game podcast, 20 Minutes of Filler, Board Game Corner, the D6 Generation, the Geek All-Stars, Blue Peg, Pink Peg, and Dice Tower Showdown at DiceTowerNetwork.com. Until next time, from all the gang at the Dice Tower, have fun gaming. I've got it. Next time I'm going to a convention, I'm bringing my son, and I'm going to call him my valet, and he is going to do all the math calculations for, he'll be the banker for every game we play.
So essentially, you are going to turn your son off from conventions. It's time to go to another convention, son. No, what did I do, Daddy? I'm so sorry.
He'll stop asking to come.
Oh.
Give him a little visor and everything.